Good evening, all. Welcome to the third technical session of 2024 on inland waterways and coastal shipping. Today's presenter is Captain Rakesh Singh, a master mariner, managing director of A-Sree companies, and the honorary secretary of ICC Shipping Association representing coastal ships. We have our chief guest for the day, Mr. Sivaram, who is General Manager Business Development from Cochin Shipyard. And the session will be chaired by Mr. Subhakar Dandapat. It is my pleasure to introduce Mr. Subhakar Dandapat. He is a domain expert on inland navigation with over 30 years in the field. He has a graduation degree in naval architecture from IIT Kharagpur in 1979 and a post-graduation in ship production technology from Strathclyde University, Glasgow in 1983. Mr. Dandapat commenced his career at Hindustan Shipyard Limited, Visakhapatnam, and later in the Inland Water Transport Directorate and Development as Advisor Shipbuilding and Repair in the Ministry of Port and Shipping. Finally, he joined Inland Waterways Authority of India and superannuated in 2016 as Chief Engineer, Project and Marine. After his retirement, he took several post-retirement assignments. He was associated with Mrs. Adani Port and SEZ Private Limited and its consultancy firm, Messrs. Hogue Engineering Project India Private Limited till March 2023 for the execution of the World Bank funded JMBP Jal Marg Vikas project on National Waterways 1, that is the Ganga Bhagirathi and Hooghly River system. He has also given consultancy services as a freelance consultant on the design and construction of inland vessels, bridging activities, regulatory framework on IWT, etc. to several organizations. Currently, Mr. Dandapat is engaged as the technical consultant to USAID sponsored project on upgrading and greening of inland vessel fleet of Bangladesh and India, which involved in developing the standard designs for freight vessels and passenger ferries and retrofitting of the existing ones. He is also engaged as an inland IWT expert and naval architect to the World Bank Group since April 2023 for the execution of the World Bank funded project WBIWT SLDP, West Bengal Inland Water Transport Spatial and Logistics Development Project in Kolkata metropolitan area on the river Hooghly, with a primary focus on strengthening the passenger ferry and freight services with the procurement of passenger ferries and freight cruises with green technology, besides the development of modern infrastructures to commence RoRo services to decongest the Kolkata city, along with the institutional strengthening and capacity building of the IWT sector in the state. With this brief introduction, now I would invite the session chair, Mr. Dandapat, to take over the session, sir.
It is indeed a great honor for me to be the chairman of these sessions. It also gives me immense pleasure that inland shipping with coastal shipping will be the today's topic for discussions. And we have the two eminent and highly experienced speakers and chief guests. One is marine engineer and other is master mariners, having wide experience and vast experience in their own domain field. With chief guest Mr. N. Sivaram, I have been associated for the last 20 years since 2004 for the constructions of the 6 number water section dredgers through EPMA shipyards. And then after that also we are having interactions intermediately. In earlier 3 months back, we had discussions with World Bank projects for green vessels. Anyway, I'll give a brief about Mr. Sivaram. He is a maritime professional with more than 35 years of experience in wide spectrum of marine activities ranging from ship operations, surveys, shipbuilding, etc. A graduate in mechanical engineering with specializations in marine engineering, sailed in merchant ships as chief engineer before leaving the sea career. He joined Indian Register of Shipping and then Bureau Veritas as a marine surveyor. Later, he worked as a technical manager with Bernard Shuttle as a leading shipping company managing across types of vessels. Then he moved to shipbuilding industry and joined an Indian private shipyard, that is Capt Shipyards, since 2004, as far as I know him, till he joined PSL, Cochin Shipyards. Presently, he is the head of the business development of the CSL and is a key player in getting many new innovative projects for CSL, including the green vessels. And for IWAI, he has been the instrumental for delivering almost 12, not exactly 12, 18 RoRo vessels, and 8 green vessels are under construction at various stages. And 2 green vessels has been recently been delivered to NW1. One is at Varanasi and another one is at Ajodhya. And also he has been instrumental for design and construction of one ferry with hydrogen fuel cells. And it will be on for the next 5 years experimental basis. Let us hope this will be a success. Then I move to Captain Rakesh Singh, our today's speaker. He has more than 45 years of domain expertise. He has the Master Mariner and also holds master degree in law and political science. He specializes in commercial laws relating to shipping and ports, including coastal and inland waterways and marine insurance. He set up his own shipping and operating company in 2003 and has extensive experience operating vessels in the coastal and inland waterways in the country. Additionally, he has been serving the industry as the Honorary Secretary for ICC Shipping Association, which is a representative body of the Indian coastal ship owners and operators since 2015. He is a member of the various committee advisory boards set up by the government of India and also state government and its agencies to foster sustainable growth of Indian domestic shipping. He is a regular invitee on Sansad TV channels to share his views on maritime sectors. He is the country's leading consultant in the matters of maritime insurance and is attached to various institutions as a guest lecturer on maritime transportations. In his spare time, he also teaches marine insurance to candidates preparing for the certificate of competency. With these brief introductions, I request Captain Rakesh take over the dais and start his presentations.
The screen can be seen, Mr. Dandapat?
Yeah, I can see it.
Yeah. Okay. So, good evening, everyone. And Mr. Dandapat, you have amply introduced me. I, first of all, thank Mr. Jyotirman, the team of Naval Architect, Mr. Das Gupta, everybody else for giving me this opportunity to interact with such august gathering online. Now, before the session started, I was saying something about the naval architects. During our sailing days, engineers and navigators, of course, sailed on the same ship. So there was to be a lot of interaction. And we knew about each other's jobs, difficulties, qualities or lack of qualities. But naval arcs are always unknown commodity for us on board ship. Until today, they are. Until, of course, we all came ashore, and that was I came in 95, that's what, 30 years back, and started working for the companies and set up own business and start dealing with naval arcs, designing ship, building ship, etc. Then we realized that, yes, there are two architects of shipping, and there are scientists as well as there are artists. So that's really a privilege to be here this evening. And as Mr. Das Gupta said earlier, that whatever I'm going to present or speak this evening, it's going to be totally based on what I have experienced or seen. Now, some of you may not agree with whatever I'm going to say, but I'll be honest to my experience and I will express that. So, topic given is, of course, inland waterways and coastal shipping. And we all know that in last, say, about 10 years or so, this subject has, gained traction, and there is a lot of discussions, a lot of efforts also from all sides to see if we can establish as a nation ourselves in achieving a modal shift. So let's, without further ado, move on with this presentation. And there we go. I'm having some problem with the slide presentation. Okay. So the first slide is what constitutes inland waterways. Generally, we see the narrative is when we say inland waterways or we say coastal shipping, we try and paint the one subject with one stroke of brush. The reality may be a little different. There may be various subsectors within a particular sector. So first question that I ask myself and ask everybody, that what constitute inland waterways? Light-rich service areas near ports. Now, you know that we have Maharashtra, Gujarat, and those who are from the eastern part of the country would see hundreds, if not more, of barges engaged in light-rich operation, bringing cargo from Sagar Island or, nearby Diamond Harbor, small barges moving up and down. That's light-rich service. Now, in my opinion, the light-rich service is a bridge between the land where the cargo has to be landed and where the cargo is actually floating and lying. And that bridge is required and is bridged through barges because the infrastructure does not exist. If we had water depth and berths, then the ships will go straight away alongside. Why would they need lighterage and barging? So is that the definition of inland waterways? There are some areas where this operation of lighterage is essential, and it helps also because it takes the cargo to the direct end user. But most of the time, it's bridging the gap of technology or infrastructure, the lighterage operation. Then the next is movement of cargo intra and interstate. The inland transportation is a concurrent list matter where the control is exercised by the state government. So inland vessels can trade within the state inland water limit, and also through a circular from Director General of Shipping, I think in 2015 or 16, we have created a 5 nautical mile corridor on the coast of India. And inland vessels can trade between states also, as long as they remain within 5 nautical mile corridor, and they can only trade in fair weather. The idea hasn't caught up much, but there are some vessels which operate, especially on West Coast, because West Coast give us 9 months of fair weather window. The East Coast doesn't give us a stretch of fair weather window because of the weather pattern on, in Bay of Bengal. So West Coast, we have some traction. Some ships operate for 9 months. And then, of course, we have 111 notified waterways. So we'll see during the course of discussion that how many of these can really be developed for transportation of goods, and where we see the potential is there, and we could probably focus on those areas rather than trying to focus on 111 areas. These are some data which is available in public domain, so there's nothing new about it. Now look at this. In 2023, we had total of 126 million metric tons of cargo transported through inland waterways. When I say inland waterways, the previous slide, all inclusive. That's impressive. But then again, you look at it, that Maharashtra, Gujarat, West Bengal, lighterage was 94 million metric tons, about. So almost 80% of that is really lighterage. National waterways, 12 of them operational, have about 32 million metric tons transportation, which amounts to about 1 to 2%. The one is of course there, but two are taken freedom because the percentages varies, but not more than 2% under any circumstances. So if you look at the inland waterways as perceived and as understood by us and as the policy directive, it actually meant transportation of goods, long haul transportation of goods, not light range, not because infrastructure doesn't exist, we have to do barging. What the policy intent was to develop waterways to take the load off from the roadways and railways and get the fair share of modal shift. So these are the figures. One can, make judgment. I'm not going to say anything further on it, that how much we have, progress. The percentage is studied over a long period of time now. Accordingly, the next question is also about the second topic for this evening is coastal shipping. What is coastal shipping and what coastal ships mean? So if you go to any conference or meeting, the subject starts with 7,500 kilometers of coastline. So is that coastal shipping? Or the vessel engaged in service sector? Now, vessels engaged in service sectors, that I've written here, tugs, dredger, MSV, etc. They are part of the extended infrastructure of ports and other industries like offshore exploration, oil. So their growth depends on the growth of ports and the offshore industry. So they're definitely part of coastal shipping. But again, as I said, is that the policy intent? They will grow, reduce, or increase with the growth of industrial sector in India. The third is large size shipments from east coast to west coast and vice versa, which often takes place by way of coals and iron ore, etc. Is that the coastal shipping? My opinion and humble opinion is that what again the policy intent is that we're looking at smaller size shipments, as I mentioned here, over shorter distance. And that is what we mean by modal shift, or in Europe, they no longer use the term coastal shipping. They use short sea shipping. Short sea shipping could be between two adjacent ports or could be hub and spoke system. So I would say that, yes, when I say growth of coastal shipping, largely it has to be modal shift, movement of cargo using coastal waterways, and of course the growth of vessels in service sector. Now, this is the data from the site, Directorate site. We have 1,000 ships notified as coastal. That means their trading licenses are restricted to coastal. Less than 100, because I do not have the correct figure, but somewhere lies between 50 and 100. These are the actual cargo carrying ships. That's a very small percentage. And the share in domestic transportation of coastal mode is around 6%, and it has been there like this for a quite long time. The coastal cargo movement, 87 million ton 10 years back, 150 million. And of course, there is Sensex comparison in a lighter vein. Potential commodities which are moved and can be moved are listed. That's a long and short introduction of inland waterways and coastal shipping with the data that is available. Let's have a comparison now. Waterways, that is coastal plus inland waterways, domestic transportation share. Japan, of course, is the highest, and we, of course, are there at still 6 plus 1.5. If you look at country, our neighbor Bangladesh, 16%. I think it's a little higher. I visit Bangladesh very often to study how they manage and what do they do. Now, some may say that comparison with Bangladesh is not fair because A, Bangladesh does not have roadways and railways network as established as India. And secondly, Bangladesh in a way is blessed with waterways. Go deep up north to Dhaka or further up, and you could still find 3 meters, 2.5, 4 meters of water. So it is their necessity, and that has resulted into this percentage. But the lesson that is to be learned from Bangladesh is that they have kept waterborne transportation to what we call no-frill transportation. When I say no-frill, means they have understood that we don't need to have massive, giant concrete structures in the form of jetties, high jetty, low jetty. Some of them look like forts from Rajasthan. They are so huge and massive, accommodating tide level of 15, 16 meter also. Mostly they have gone for makeshift bamboo jetties, and smaller ships are go alongside and they discharge, load, and get out. So they have kept the infrastructure also compatible with the business that they do, the margin that the business creates, and accordingly, then only it becomes what I'm going to say in the next slide is this. The model shift is unlikely to take place unless it is viable, competitive, and sustainable. Viability in terms of business viability, competitive with other modes of transportation, and sustainable. This sustainable has been a big issue. Many routes, many voyages, we were able to break even or maybe have some profit margin. But then the customers wanted sustainable service. And we made beginnings with a lot of fanfare. And you still hear in newspapers and articles that this voyage was done and that voyage was done. And then we do not hear about the second voyage or third voyage or a regular service, sustainable basis. So this is not very pleasant situation for our customers who use our vessels because we are not able to provide sustainable service on a sustainable basis. Why, question is often asked, it comes to our mind that the government agencies are trying its best as stakeholders. We are also trying our best that we're trying to achieve some kind of a modal shift. 80% of cargo of Indian domestic transportation is by railways and roadways, 7-8% by waterways, then there is airline and there are pipelines. These are the 4-5 modes of transportation. Because it is well understood now that the growth story of India is still in its adolescent stage, and it's going to grow and grow and grow. And though we understand that the network of roadways and highways at rapid speed it's developing, we have railways going, dedicated freight corridor is going to be operational soon. But as I said, India's growth story has just begun. So no matter how much we grow in road and railway sector, we would still have congestion in 5 years or 10 years time. So it's a right intent. The policy intent is right that we should look for alternate mode of transportation, particularly when we have coastlines and we have waterways. So as far as the policy intent is concerned, I think the thinking is correct. But let's look, what are the basic requirements of viable and sustainable transportation through inland waterways? Navigable waterways. LED, of course, your least assured depth and overhead clearances. This is the saddest story of our inland waterways. In some interactions with ministry, is to say that, can we have a Jal Marg without Jal? or a waterway without water. As an industry representative, I can say with some responsibility that if we are assured of water depth, in a stretch of waterways, whatever it may be, then we can all plan the business, we can all convince our customers that we are in position to provide them the sustainable service. But right now, this is a big challenge. But believe me that it's not easy to dredge or train, as they call it in dredging term, Indian rivers and maintain LAD because of the nature of sedimentation that exists especially in Ganges and also in Brahmaputra, heavy siltation as compared to the rivers in Europe, which you hear about Rhine and Danube. There's a percentage of siltation is very, very high. It's very challenging. So that credit must be given that it's not easy. But then if we have to move towards achieving our objective, this has to be primary focus. 24/7 navigation, when I say night navigation, in NW1, Mr. Dandapat is here, he knows, I think from Haldia up to Rajmangal, that's a West Bengal border. We have a E-chart, navigation chart, and we have a choice to do 24/7 navigation. Other than that, no area, whether west of India, that is towards Bangladesh, or NW2, we do not have night navigation facility installed. And as a result, most of the ship vessels probably operate maximum for 12 hours a day, and then they anchor for the night. And that impacts viability. Terminals and facilities, I said that we have some big terminals, especially one terminal which has come about Haldia is very promising. And I always see that terminal could be a hub of transportation catering to Northeast, Bangladesh, Myanmar. But once again, the story is that we do not have enough water alongside berth. And this is what my information is, which later somebody can correct me. The water is there when there's high tide, otherwise there's no water. What has been our consistent demand that IWI and the government agencies should privatize this and let the stakeholder build their own pontoon jetties, small jetties, wherever they want, and facilitate that. Cargo connect and support is a challenge in inland waterways as well as in coastal waterways. We have a lot of cargo moving, low value cargo moving from India to Bangladesh, but we do not have any return cargo. Vessel of right design and specification. The vessels which were constructed for inland transportation, barges, they were all with in mind to do the lighterage, mostly. IWI has some vessels which are 22, 2300 deadweight carrying capacity, but most of the vessels were designed only for lighterage services. So we need vessels which we have to see according to the area where the vessels are going to operate, what is the optimum size and what is the depth available. IWI had, with a very good intent, had placed on its website a design, which is DST German, I believe, on the site available free of cost. But there was no taker for that design because that design probably was good for Europe or wherever it was used, good, not for Indian conditions. So design and specifications are very essential. And as I heard, Mr. Dandapat is working introducing biofuel. Yes, that will be a great help as well. So these are the basic requirements. There may be more, but these are very essential. There are some low-hanging fruit with respect to authorities in the manner they act, whether they are helpful or not helpful or delay the vessel for some paper documentation. But those things are part of industry, doing business in India or in South Asia. We could overcome those difficulties, but these are the key ones. Now, I highlight these key national waterways, 6 of them, though there are 111 notified. First 3 of them, I have personal experience, and I see that there is a potential, subject to certain, focus policy. Number 4, number 5, number 6, well, I think they're still being worked upon, and there will be a little while before we could see movement in a regular manner. But Mr. Dandapat can probably update us on these 3 waterways, but I'll stick to first 3 of them. Now, look at the number 1 waterway. Haldia, Varanasi, Prayagraj, Ganga, Bhagirath, whatever name you use, Hooghly. Chainage is 1620 kilometers as compared to roadways is 920 kilometers.
Yeah, right.
So we, as a waterway, as a mode of transportation, we as ship owners start with some 500 to 550 kilometers of arithmetical disadvantage over road or railways. The river from Haldia, Calcutta goes straight north to Farakka, which is in West Bengal, and then from there it turns to west and it becomes parallel to roadways and railways. So Haldia, Varanasi, Prayagraj route, because of the change, the river flows, we can't change that. It's a great disadvantage when you talk to competitiveness. You have second is Haldia, Pandu, Brahmaputra, Sadia. This is a part of from, let's say, from Haldia up to Indian boundary, boundary, which is near Himnagar, is a part of Sundarban, part of Hooghly. And then there's a protocol, that's the route which is controlled by Bangladesh. We call it Indo-Bangla Protocol route. And from Dhubri, it becomes again Indian territory and Brahmaputra River. So I've taken an example of Haldia and Pandu, which is something which all aim to provide service between these 2 places. There, the difference is there, but it's not so much as compared to NW1. And this can be overcome. This route also has a very important strategic importance because of the chicken neck. So in our opinion, this route is very important that we focus on this route, to develop this route. Why? What is the problem? That I'll deal later. The number 3 is, of course, West Coast Canal, Kollam and Kozhikode. This is a dream route for me, NW3. Because now look, the state land acquisition in India is a problem anywhere. And it's more problem in Kerala because of the geography of the Kerala, topography of Kerala. The way is the most suitable and optimum way. And this canal can really reduce the congestion along Cochin, Trivandrum, Kollam corridor. But I heard just a few days back that there was a big protest in Kerala because the canal needs to be widened. And there were about 1,250 families which are going to be affected by that. And they are not happy with the compensation or the settlement terms. And they were protesting that this work should stop. I think the government should do everything to ensure that this is done because there's no more land in Calcutta to develop, in Kerala to develop. Number 4, 5, and 6 are still, being worked upon at planning stage, part execution. So there's nothing much to speak about. I'll leave them for the time being. There are other efforts being undertaken at state level, like in Maharashtra Maritime Board with IWAI is trying to work on the network of waterways, Rev Danda and all small sections, basically as a feeder service there also. But they are making effort. But these are the major routes or waterways. So the question that will come to anybody's mind with all these things that I am mentioning here, has the concept of transportation of goods through inland waterways has been put to the real test as yet in terms of viability and in terms of sustainability? I already said that in terms of sustainability, not yet, because we have not been able to provide service on sustainable basis. And also in terms of viability, unless we provide the service on a regular basis, we can't actually see a single voyage for demonstration or a voyage funded with viability gap funding. These are not the real test of business. So in terms of viability and sustainability, the concept itself has not been put to test fully as yet. We'll see why. This is NW1, and it starts with Haldia, Sagar or Haldia, whichever point you choose. Then it goes to Farakka, and then from there to Patna, Varanasi, Allahabad, etc. This is 60% more distance when compared to roadways and railways. Inadequate LED in Bihar and UP. There is sufficient water in Bengali region, and there is a decent water in the eastern part of Jharkhand up to Sahibganj, which I say decent means at least 2.5 to 3 meters of water. But beyond that, we are not sure. No night navigation, as I mentioned earlier, poor overhead clearances. There are a number of bridges. There's a saying in Tamil that when you have stones in hand, you don't have dogs. And when you see the dogs, you don't have stone. So the story of LED, the water depth and overhead clearance is like this. When there is water, the overhead clearance is not adequate. And when there is a clearance, there is not enough water. So probably we need to redesign ships for these areas, because redesigning the bridge will be probably impossible. And we did a voyage, first voyage, I think it was in 2019, with a lot of fanfare, carrying container from Haldia meant for Patna. We had to stop at Sahibganj because the bridge clearance under the bridge between Patna and Sahibganj was not adequate. We had to deliver the cargo at Sahibganj through trailer at Patna. The freight that was run between Haldia and Sahibganj was lost, all gone in hiring the trailers to to deliver the good to the consignee in Patna. So that's the story. No return cargo, as I mentioned, west to east. That means from UP, Bihar, Jharkhand at the moment, the cargo movement towards east is not so much, though there's a potential for food grain, etc. to move, but we don't have a right size of ship. And again, water depth and overhead clearances. That's number one. Number two is again a mixture, as I said earlier. There's a part of Indian waterway, then there's a protocol route, and then Brahmaputra. Excuse me, distance is quite comparable, and we are pretty okay. As a ship owner, we don't mind a couple of 100 kilometers. The problem with this route is that from Haldia, Calcutta, or from anywhere in West Bengal region up to Dhaka or Narayanganj, as they call it, that's a textile hub of Bangladesh, there is enough water. When I say enough water, means even 3.5 meters, 4 meters water. You could see from the suburb of Dhaka, a ship of 100-meter vessel of container vessel sailing out, sailing in, 3-4 meters of water they have. They have enough water in this stretch. And all the fly ash that moves from India to Bangladesh uses this route. North of Dhaka or Narayanganj is an issue. India signed protocol with Bangladesh in 71, 72. And in 72, in the protocol is clearly stated that waterway north of Dhaka or Narayanganj is of no interest to Bangladesh or no commercial interest to Bangladesh. If India wants to develop, it should develop of its own. And let me tell you, the waterway from Dhaka, northward of Dhaka, up to Dhubri, where Indian boundary starts near Dhubri, it's a graveyard of ships. I'm saying with a lot of responsibility. My own ships have run aground a number of times. Bangladesh authorities do declare least depth in those regions. Most of the time is 1.8, sometimes it is 1.5. But there's no clarity. Where is the water? How much is the water? There's no navigation facility. In the name of pilotage, some local fishermen come on vessel and they do by guess, trial and error, try and take your vessel safely and cross to Indian side of Brahmaputra River. And once again, there's no return cargo. There was a lot of movement of cargo, there was a lot of interest shown by, I must say, we were supported by many companies based in West Bengal and in that region. And they gave us cargo to carry, very good cargo in containers and otherwise coal, bulk, etc. But then this is what happens. The voyage was delayed beyond, reasonable period, and vessels running aground. So there were hardly any repeat of voyages. If the voyage was expected to take 15 days, it took 25, 30, 40 days. And then the depth of water not known, location not known. This is why I said earlier that the most important thing is the water in the waterway. Kerala, I've already mentioned that this is the most suitable in terms of comparative distances, and we cannot acquire any more land in Calcutta to widen probably the roads or railway lines. So this is the best chance to develop, and this probably could flourish. We have seen traffic along the coast of Kerala between North Kozhikode and Kollam and Trivandrum, and this could be taken off by this waterway. Number 4, 5, as I said, is premature to comment. Way forward, challenges, and if we can overcome. So I think priority focus, not only number 2 and 6, what I mean to say is that we got to prioritize our focus in terms of developing basic infrastructure, in terms of viability and sustainability. So number 2 and 6, I personally give very high marks that we could develop. There's a tender signed to dredge Brahmaputra River north of Dhaka. That was almost a year back. I haven't followed up on it, at how much progress that we have made. Number 1, waterway. It is very attractive because look at the big population centers along the river for obvious reason. The rivers-based civilizations. We have Calcutta, we have Howrah, we have Sahibganj and Varanasi, Patna, Allahabad, all big cities, all big consumption, based population. But as I said, because of mathematical disadvantages and other lack of infrastructure, I think we need to break NW1 into small stretches. We need to try Varanasi, Patna, Patna Sahibganj, or Haldia Sahibganj, and then see how it works. But for those stretches and for apparent lack of cargo, I think we need a redesign of vessels. Vessels in the neighborhood of about 1,000 tons carrying capacity and draft 1.5 to 1.8 meters. And with, of course, low height for overhead clearances. We do not have those kind of many vessels in India at the moment. So this remains very unutilized sector. It's a chicken and egg situation. Whether I should bring the ship and then the cargo will come, or if there's a cargo, then I'll bring the ship. Focus on river training, dredging, ensuring LED 24/7 navigation, permit private parties to build, operate jetties and terminals, as I mentioned earlier. Create logistics center warehouse along the river. Now, this is very important because in Europe, in 60s, till 60s, all the industries were along the river. But then the environmental concerns made the industries move away from the river. But what happened? They did not give up the space along the rivers. They used those spaces to create warehouses and logistics centers so that the water as a mode of transportation could be used. Explore the possibility of using IW as a feeder route for EXIM cargo. In my earlier sheet, I had shown you that Japan domestic transportation through water mode is about over 30%. And what is pleasant to note that 30%, a huge percentage of that is feeder route for EXIM cargo. Industries are in hinterland, and these small vessel carrying, you've seen in Hong Kong and Shanghai and China, this is what happens. Small vessel carrying 20, 30, 40, 50 containers feeding to the main port and main lines. Way forward policy intervention. This has been a demand that shipping, at least inland shipping, could be granted infrastructure status. Soft and long-term loan. If the loan system continues to be as it is for other industries. Tonnage tax regime. This has been our demand for last many years, that we have MS Act vessels which we enjoy the choice or option of tonnage tax. They can opt for tonnage tax. But inland vessels are not included. Obviously, when this was conceived, inland transportation was never thought to be an area of focus of interest. But now that since it is an area of interest, national interest, then we should amend the Act, Income Tax Act, and include these vessels under tonnage tax regime. And this, in our opinion, would attract new investors, promoters. Bring fuel used on IV under GST regime. This is the demand for coastal ships also. We out of 200 million metric tons of fuel, which is fossil fuel, which probably is used by India, all sectors, only 2% is used by maritime sector. So any notional loss in revenue is very little compared to advantages. Provide incentive to switch to clean fuels with logistic support. A lot of efforts have been made. If we can switch over to CNG in inland vessels, but then we don't have logistic support for fueling, refueling. Provide third-party liability cover through Indian underwriter. This presentation was made by recently in a conference organized by DG Shipping that our now under the new Act Inland Vessel of 2021, the inland vessel owners can also limit their liability like MS Act vessels. And these liabilities are defined. They are very reasonable in the range of 5, 9, 10, 12 crores. And Indian underwriters should not have any problem now with the limitation of liability well defined to underwrite this vessel. Efforts are on. I think this is a low-hanging fruit, and it should be done. So, hello.
Hello. It's okay. Hello.
Yeah, I think there's some issue with Captain Singh's connection.
Mr. Dandapat.
Yeah. I'm listening. I mean, it's okay. You can continue. There is some issue. Hello. What's the connectivity?
I think we're all getting reconnected. I'll just find out, sir, what's the issue. Let's find out what the issue is. We lost the connectivity and re-establishing, so all of us are reconnecting. So it'll just connect it'll just get connected in a minute. So. Yes, sir. Welcome, sir. I think there's been a connectivity issue. You can recontinue, sir. You can continue, sir.
So, okay.
Yes, sir.
So,
You can continue, sir.
Inland part I have finished. Can I move on to coastal part now?
Yes, sir. Please, sir. Please, sir. Continue, sir.
Can you see my presentation still or not?
No, sir. You need to
You need to reload it.
share it again, sir.
I'm sorry, I don't know what went wrong. It all
Maybe at our back end, sir. We don't know, sir.
Yeah.
Apologies, but we can continue, sir. Yes, sir. We are seeing your slides, sir. Slide number 15, we are seeing, sir.
Yeah. Okay. So we come to now the coastal shipping. So again, I asked in the earlier slide that what is the exact definition of coastal shipping, and we understand it's a modal shift. That's what the Government of India Ministry of Shipping has been emphasizing upon. So the question asked is the peninsular coastline conducive to coastal trade? 7,500 kilometers of peninsular coastline, is it conducive? In our opinion, it is not. If you take a shipment of 8,000-10,000 tons from Kandla to Haldia, will it be faster and cheaper by railways or roadways or going via Sri Lanka? So really, it has to be very selective. Route selection is so important. And as I said earlier, we try and paint with single stroke or brush coastal shipping. No, sir, peninsular coastline is not always conducive. If you look at China, they have a straight line. They're very successful. Or a coastline like Australia, which helps, but not peninsular. Do we have adequate infrastructure in terms of berth, entry, evacuation? We have seen that major ports have been asked to dedicate a coastal berth, but then it remains a custom notified area. The berth, port handling charges, etc., are very high, and I don't blame port who invest millions of dollars in creating an infrastructure and then give away to coastal ships. So we do have an issue with the infrastructure in terms of jetties and berth dedicated to coastal shipping, and also entry and evacuation. That's a connectivity issue with everywhere. Is there enough cargo available for shipment? Once again, on the west coast of India, we have sufficient cargo which could move from Gujarat down to Karnataka or Kerala, but there's hardly anything moving up. Again, chicken and egg situation. Consumption production center mismatch. We know that there are areas which produce raw material on East Coast, and there are heavy consumption areas on the West Coast. Adequate number of size types of ships? No, sir, not at all. At this moment, we have hardly any cargo carrying ship. And do we need policy intervention? So we will see what we can do. This is a case study. Now, I have taken two cases. This study was done by ADB long back, 10 years back. Now, what they have tried to show, and which I've selected two cases here, that let's look at the movement of goods from one part of India to another part using railways, roadways, and if alternatively we use waterways, what happens? And the point I'm trying to emphasize is that we have to select, choose, decide that this is the route, short sea route, which is viable and it can serve. Otherwise, it'll be an exercise in theory. Look at this route, Jamshedpur Tata Steel to Thane in Mumbai. There is a cost difference if we use railways versus coastal shipping of 650 rupees per metric ton per kilometer. That's where the peninsular coastline doesn't help much. So railways and roadways can do good. So this is a case study to show that it is not viable and it probably never will be viable. And with the railways and roadways becoming more efficient, we have more competition. Next case is opposite. This is Mahanadi Coalfield to TPS in Tamil Nadu, thermal power station. And look at this, because of the short sea distance and the production center not being very far away from port, and also the delivery point not being very far away, it gives us an advantage using coastal shipping in this segment for this part of the nation or the coastline. The coastal shipping is a lot cheaper. It could be a lot cheaper. There's a very well-established cement company in India. Let me give you a straight example, which has been using for more than 10 years or so, a particular size of vessel for captive movement of cargo from point A to point B on west coast of India. They are very successful because the route is dedicated, the cargo is dedicated. It's a short sea shipping. And if I understand it correctly, the cost of transportation by coastal ship is less than 50% of what would have been by roadways or railways. So when we talk about coastal shipping, there's a lot of exercise need to be done. The solution can only be found with the industry who is going to use these ships, sit with them, identify areas, and they say, all right, this is the sector where we can really provide the service on a sustainable basis. It can be viable. However, we need this kind of a ship for this sector and this business. So that's the idea of showing these two cases to you. Identified challenges and suggestions. Identification of route and cargo support, which I was just trying to tell you, that short sea shipping, we got to identify the producer of the commodities and the consumer of the commodities. Interaction with stakeholder, with industry, trade bodies, other trade bodies is so essential. Hub and spoke has been very popular also in Europe and USA. Let's say a car manufacturing company in Chennai. Now that car manufacturing company trying to use a car carrier to bring the cargo to Kandla car and then taking it onwards to Gurgaon or vice versa. It was tried, but then again, it was not viable. And then after 1 year of service or couple of service, the project was abandoned. What is suggested is that we use hub and spoke system, that Chennai becomes a hub. For example, Chennai becomes a hub, and then it goes to the nearby areas, taking the car or whatever product that we need to take. That's a hub and spoke system. Creation of infrastructure and tonnage. Identify and create port-based agglomeration center, warehouse logistics centers, where the commodity users can store their commodities at strategic locations, and from there they can move on to nearby destination. Construction of exclusive jetties and basic infrastructure connectivity under Sagarmala or otherwise. Being a multimodal transport and exorbitant first and last mile cost, type and size of vessels become very critical. If you do the overall cost analysis, the first and last mile connectivity is a very high cost. Multiple handling means multiple cost and multiple insurance. Some people even say that the RoRo probably would be the only viable option or competitive and sustainable option, and small container ships. I must emphasize on small container ships because we do not have what we call it 300 to 400 TEU container ships in India. And many of these small routes like Vizag to Haldia, Haldia to Paradeep, the feeder services require small container ships where the dead freighting or the empty spaces are minimized. And we call it Calcutta Max. Why? Because the draft should be such that they should be able to also call Calcutta Haldia. We don't have a single RoRo vessel, and we do not have a single container vessel which is below 400 or 300 TEU capacity in India. So there's a definite shortage of tonnage to put the concept to test. Coastal ship financing. Financing, like any industry in India, of course, is always high interest rate, short-term loan, demand for collateral. This matter has been taken up for years and years. Maritime Shipping Development Fund, Coastal Shipping Viability Gap Fund, etc., is being discussed. But we have to see the proof of pudding would be in eating. Indonesia and China, particularly Indonesia, I must give you an example. Again, island country, waterborne transportation is necessity. They have a very very interesting soft loan system and long-term payment system for their coastal fleet. The only condition is the loan terms are long, the loans are, interest rates are less, very, very less, very competitive. But the only condition is those vessels cannot be sold to anyone outside Indonesia. That means once you avail that facility of financial help, you have to remain in Indonesia. Or if you wish to do so, then you have to pay difference of interest what would have accrued. A rationalization of GST regime is another issue, which is different GST policies for different things. 5% GST on acquisition of ship is still smarting with that pain. Viability gap funding is become a very hot topic, but the problem is that ships do not fall under what is called harmonized list of things. The ports do. So giving viability gap funding to ships for acquisition, construction, the laws need to be amended or policies need to be changed. Cost of fuel, again, said this has been a request that please allow 5% GST on coastal ships. The fear, the government, the worry is that it will be black, marketing will start. Well, we got to take safeguard against those. But bringing fuel under 5% GST would bring down the cost of coastal shipping very, very significantly. Dedicated coastal and domestic regime. This is, of course, it raises eyebrows. And, the countries like Japan, China, Indonesia have two regimes. You all know very well. There's a JG and then there's an KK. And same is with China. And these regimes are exclusive to cater to coastal or domestic shipping. I think this is an important step forward to bring focus and also create a level playing field. When I say level playing field means what? Today, the coastal or ships are treated in the manner which it can be best described as convention minus in terms of rules and regulation. The convention, okay, we dilute it a little bit and there it is for you. Whereas our competition is railways and roadways. So any regulation should have been railway roadways plus, not convention minus. Role of external agencies, these customs, immigration, port health, all moving cargo from Mumbai to Goa or Mumbai to of 2 ports in Maharashtra or 2 ports in Goa or anywhere between 2 ports in India is treated as good or as badly as EXIM cargo. Same customs, immigration laws, port health laws, etc. apply to these vessels as they apply to EXIM trade. Again, I would repeat that over 10 years of time or so, these areas have been identified by the ministry as low-hanging fruit. Number of committees have been set up, but we also understand when a matter is a multi-ministerial, that means it is not limited to our own Ministry of Shipping, Port and Waterways. It needs interaction with other ministries. It takes a while to convince them and make progress. So this is another area where we need to do something about it. We are not saying that we will not comply, but what we're saying is that please create a regime online where footfall can be reduced, all data can be uploaded, and the coastal ships can move freely along the coast of India. Regional cooperation. BIMSTEC would be also very, very important. We already have agreement with Bangladesh, as you all know. We have a SOP with Bangladesh, where river sea vessels can trade between the 2 vessels and the international conventions and protocols are not followed. Though it's a different thing that not a single vessel is operating on this route, which is Indian flag, because of the operating cost differential. All vessels are Bangladesh vessel. But we think once we include Myanmar and particularly Sri Lanka, that will complete the loop of trading route from India west coast all the way via Sri Lanka to Bangladesh and Myanmar, and then the coastal ships can also start operating and provide very competitive service. I understand the discussion with Sri Lanka government are going on and also with Myanmar government. Once these 2 countries can join hand with India and sign a regional agreement for trade, then I think there will be significant progress. That's all, gentlemen. Thank you so much for opportunity, and I will take questions if there are any.
Thank you, Captain Rakesh ji. It's really is a very good presentation, highlighting all the issues and challenges both in inland water transport and also coastal shipping. And it is necessary that some of these should be taken up by INA or other organizations. Then only something can be possible and done, and it can be made viable. So before going for question and answer, may I request Mr. N. Sivaram to speak few words on the subject.
Yeah, good evening to all. Am I audible?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. First of all, I thank the organizers for inviting me and this August audience, and I also congratulate them for taking this subject, which is quite relevant for the country, which is not really has got the full attention of this fraternity. I'll put that way. And Captain Rakesh Singh is one of the best personality in India who understands this from all angles. And instead of a pure technical seminar, today we had a very, very, very insightful presentation from Captain Rakesh Singh on why this industry, which got so much of potential, could not take off. He has got the ground reality in hand, and he has expressed it very well. So thank you, Captain Rakesh Singh, for bringing all the problems on the table. So one thing which really caught attention about the inland waterways, as Captain Rakesh Singh was saying, is about the sustainable, competitive and viable transportation, which every shipper expects from any mode of transport. So this is a key to any business. And this is where we could not demonstrate it due to various reasons as being detailed. And that gives us a lot of thinking. And I think that is where the policymakers, the industry experts and stakeholders have to think. And it may be too difficult for the government also to ignore as we move forward. The country with 5 trillion GDP and further going forward with the present logistic cost, which hovers around 14-15% of the total cost, whereas developed countries with a good maritime infrastructure, which is about 5 to 7%. This is again a low-hanging fruit, and it's also something which is essential for the country to be competitive in its manufacturing and its distribution network. So government has identified that maritime transport is essential, and it is up to us to now provide solutions which are sustainable. So I think definitely the policies will happen. Probably the industry stakeholders have to now take it forward, and finally the sustainable, viable solutions are provided. Regarding the coastal and inland for that matter, one of the main constraint or main challenge what we are seeing is that unlike large merchant vessels and other other shipping segment, Indian technology and Indian professionals, let it be marine engineers, let it be master mariners, let it be naval architects, really we could not attract the best talents to this field. We could see the best of people in all big shipping liners across the globe. We could see any classification society, whether it is in Boston or whether it is in Norway or whether it is in Japan, we have Indian professionals working in very key critical positions. Whereas how many of us are really working in this segment, which Captain Rakesh Singh is working? Really, maybe very few. And the talents and the insightful resources is very much needed if the country has to get the right solutions. So the cargo is going to be there, trade is going to be there. It is for finding an economical, sustainable solution that needs good minds and good brains. And I think that is what professional body like INA and all should focus on, I believe, which can help this industry to grow further. Another aspect what Captain Rakesh Singh has brought, which is very relevant, is about the compliances and the rules and regulations. Technically, I'm talking about. I'm not talking about the customs and finance and other commercial aspects, which are ministerial issues, which he has already dealt with. In a country like India, it always takes time. Where the finance ministry and other commerce ministry got upper hand, where the Ministry of Shipping, when it goes for such meetings, they are unable to prevail upon other ministries because of the share what we contribute to total GDP.
That's true.
Yeah.
So
It's absolutely true.
But the regulations, rules, the design easiness, the no frill designs, I'll put that way, very simple, which makes it economical. These are something which is missing. These are all within our industry. DG Shipping, Indian Register of Shipping, the design houses, the shipyards. We can provide such solutions within ourselves without violating the safety. Whereas we are unable to apply the most optimal solution for such vessels, and we try to end up using entire SOLAS and MARPOL and other rules which are not at all essential. And this can be learned from the countries like Japan and all, who really optimized their rules and regulations to the extent that the ships do not become expensive at the end of the day. Then only the cargo can be competitive. So this is something which within our industry itself, we should try to have more discussions. And I would like to request INA to, also work along with other industries to see how best we can support. these initiatives. With this, I once again thank Rakesh Singh for his insightful presentation, which was very helpful and which also is best timed for the country to look forward. And I'm very sure that government will be with us. It's up to us how to take it further, so that the young shippers are given the value which otherwise they are getting through railway and road, and provide the most economical solutions. Thanks.
Yes. The questions are open to the forum, sir. Questions can be raised and put in the Q&A box. Yeah. See, Mr. Krishnan Koti is posing a question.
I've also added Mr. Koti in the panel. He can
Yeah, please. Mr. Krishnan Koti, you can just ask your question, please, or your comment.
Dr. Iyengar, you're on mute, sir.
So the question which Mr. Krishnan Koti is asking is, in case of lighter age, who earns the money? That's his first question. And the second question is, why is there such a large difference between notified and actual inland ships?
Is that question addressed to me?
Yes, I mean, anyone of the panel can take the question. Yes, you can take the question.
Can you repeat the first part, sir? First question?
Yeah. The first question was, in case of lighter age, who earns the money?
Who earns the money?
Yeah.
Okay. So that's a very big question. So there is a buyer of cargo and there is a seller of cargo. One person is buying and one person is selling. And then there is a transportation responsibility. That who will transport the cargo? Buyer will transport or seller will transport, accordingly CIF or FOB. Now, if the contract says that the cargo must be delivered at my doorstep, the big ship may not be able to go to his doorstep. So I hire small boats to deliver that cargo. So it depends what is the contractual term, whether I have to deliver at his doorstep, then whatever method, truck, train, ship, barge, I have to use and deliver it to his doorstep. So the entire cost is borne by me. And of course, if I have to hire barges for transportation, then barge owner gets the freight. That's his part of the earning for that leg. I hope that answers the question.
Yes. Another question by Mr. Krishnan Koti is, why is there such a large difference between notified and actual inland ships?
Notified and actual inland ships, sir, I didn't get the question. Sorry. Notified and actual means?
Can Mr. Krishnan Koti, you're added to the panel. Can you just clarify your question? Mr. Koti, you can just verbally clarify the question.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. We can hear you, sir. You can just clarify the question.
I am not speaking because my microphone is not very good. I can
Yes,
hear, but no, because in the presentation you showed some notified 1100 plus, but whereas actually,
Okay.
that is what I was trying to.
So right.
What the reason why?
No, sir, you're right. The Government of India, Ministry of Port, Shipping and Waterways has notified 111 waterways as national waterways, where the government sees that there is a potential to convert them into waterways for transportation of goods. So to that extent, those are notified waterways. I have, in my presentation, highlighted the ones which can really impact the modal shift. They are the major ones. And they have been in use and in operation for a long time, like NW1. Now, NW1 from Prayagraj to Haldia, we know about it. It has been into existence, partly operating, partly not. And the second one, Brahmaputra River, which is a set of strategic importance to us from Guwahati to Haldia. So I have taken where the movement of cargo is already taking place. There's a work going on, may not be in a sustainable manner, may not be in a viable manner, but efforts are on. So I have kind of focused. I could not address all, so I just took the key ones.
No, but does it mean that the potential may not completely realize here, right?
So this is, as I said, inland waterways is a concurrent list matter. The government of India, through Ministry of Shipping, has notified these, but the state government and central government have to work together to identify those and work on them and see what needs to be done. So, as I said, it will take a while before, and all of them may not be viable. Let me be very frank with you. Or 111 of them may not be viable. But then the government has said that if they want to develop, state government want to develop, or state government want to develop with the central government collaboration, welcome to do work on these waterways.
Okay, understand. Thank you.
Mr. Dandapat, you're on mute actually. You're on mute. Yeah, please unmute yourself.
Yeah, out of 111 waterways, 35 has been identified that can be viable with little bit river conservancy works. But other things will take a lot of time unless until we do a really very, very expensive measure of conservancy work. So therefore, this IWAI is just mostly focusing on only 35 at the right moment.
Sir, Mr. Palit has certain questions, and I think he's added to the panel, sir. Mr. Palit, if you just ask your questions, sir, please.
Palit sir will come.
Okay, I think Palit sir, as we wait for Palit sir.
No, he is unmuted himself.
Yeah, he is unmuted. Please, sir.
It's just his observations only.
Yeah.
Can I read this?
Yes.
He has written that he met Director Calcutta with one of his relatives who wishes to start a small company with his friends. Director informed that there is demand for many small ships and dredgers. He mentioned that these ships and dredgers are to be operated through Adani Shipping. Is this true? As far as I know, this is not true. I don't know exactly at what time and which where he has met Director Calcutta. That particular times maybe Adani Shipping was in charge of the dredging for the stretch between Farakka to Patna under the Jalmar Vikas project. So because of that, he might have suggested that one. Otherwise, it is anybody can free to have the vessels and start operations and can also start dredging operations or any other, unless through the dredging contract, of course, they cannot do it of themselves. The dredging operations has also been limited for IWAI. Recently, again, it has come up. And there are extreme shortage of dredging equipments. So there is a need for the small vessels and then dredging equipments. So he has, in the second note, he has written that my relative's name is Ramit Bose. Can we meet at Calcutta? Yes, he can meet. Now the things, scenario has changed. He can meet and can discuss further on this issue.
So, Mr. Dandapat, what he's saying is right. I just, because he said third question is my both questions of Captain Rakesh Singh, so I'll try and quickly answer.
Yeah.
The first question I break into two parts. His friend wants to start a company. Well, we are there as an association, as individual friend, always there to help and guide. If we can in any manner, that part is okay. Second part is what discussion he had with the then director IWAI and a particular company. I think we will not comment on this. As Dandapat said, it's an open tender for anybody in every company can participate. So we will leave that question. But if somebody wants to enter into this business, we are always there to help.
Commander Verma has joined us with an observation and question, sir. Please, sir.
Krishnamurti again. Shall I read it, or is just a page observation only? Good presentations giving many eye-opening data for people like us who are not connected with the field. From listening to the presentations, I get the feeling that every route will have to be studied individually and total economy of operation decided. It is imperative that the final cost should be minimized for this. All stakeholders must join together and forget to some extent at least the individual gains and losses. About fuel cost, maybe we can have a look at the green fuel seriously. Also, it is quite clear that the statutory rules and regulations must be relooked at an impartial manner and with a readiness to depart from traditional thinking. And this question has been directed to nobody. I mean, congratulations to the presenter for, yeah. Whatever Krishna footage mentioned is obviously it is true and it's a fact. And these are being looked after. And regarding the individual waterways to be looked into in details, yes, it has been done. Quite a lot of DPR, feasibility report DPR has been completed, but actual executions for development have not yet been taken up. Even for NW 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, DPR has been completed, scheme has been completed, but the executions have not been done because of the various reasons, which cannot be explained, I mean, over here, because of the state governments and other interventions. However, this green fuel is obviously it is a necessity at this stage. And then statutory rules and regulations, again, it is also necessary that as much as rationalizations is possible, it has to be done and should be done. And we should be away from the rational thinking. It is a fact. And yes. Then other questions come from Commander Verma. I remember when I was in NSDRC during 1992-2001, we had taken the case of IWT to be declared as industry and the rules and regulations of CIWTC to be rewritten accordingly. I would like to know if there has been any progress on this issue, Commander V.K. Verma.
Yeah, Bandha, I will answer this question. I will take this question because
Please.
I've been dealing with this subject. Yes, Commander Verma, now the thing is that if you know that inland vessels were governed under 1917 Act earlier, for 100 years we are using the same act. And in 2021, we have a new act, Inland Vessel Act 2021. And under the act, the rules were drafted in 2021. I was a member of that committee along with IRIS representatives. So we have now a little change in the way this whole business of inland water transportation is to be administered. Earlier, under 1917 Act, and very much like Motor Vehicle Act, the act was national. The rules were made by state governments, and the implementation of rules were also done by state governments. This is absolutely drawing parallel to the Motor Vehicle Act, a concurrent list matter. But after 2021, we have an act which is central, as it was before, and we now have rules also which are central. The IWAI has now been made competent authority to draft rules and implement these rules. Then after that, when the rules are made centrally by IWAI as a competent authority, they are given to the state governments. The state governments have some freedom for modifications here and there, but they remain responsible for implementation of these rules. So earlier the act was central, everything else was passed to the central government, state government. Now act and rule both are with central government. Rules are sent to the state government with some freedom to modify, relax, etc. But implementation responsibility lies with the state government, the coastal state, or any other state for that matter, which is in this business. I hope that answers the question. There's another question from Hemant Varsan. Sir, tell about coastal shipping safety purpose. I am not sure. What is the question actually, wants me to speak about? coastal shipping safety, you mean safety standards?
Mr. Vasan, you have been added to the panel. You can clarify your question, please. I think we can interpret it as safety standards, sir, perhaps. Are there any safety rules?
I thought as much. So,
Yeah.
well, I think this has a origin in when I said that we need to rationalize the rules and regulation. When I said that we need to have a body separately controlling or the coastal domestic business. So by no means anybody is suggesting that there has to be dilution, but there has been rationalization. As Sir Dandapat said, China, Japan, Indonesia, we can name, they have done it and they're doing it very, very well. So can we. The only difference is when you see a surveyor who has a background of working on large tankers, bigger ships, container ships, modern ships, and he goes on a vessel as surveyor, which is 2,000 ton barge. It's very difficult for him to adjust to the 2,000 barge standards, where the fan is considered adequate. So when you have a cadre and your own regime, you will have people coming out from the coastal industry, from inland industry as surveyors. So they will have more practical application. Definitely, there's no compromise in safety of life, safety of ship, or pollution. But as I said, we don't need to copy paste IMO conventions or make changes with comma and full stop here and line here and there and say now it is diluted or exempted. Got to think out of the box. Totally differently. As I said, rail plus, not convention minus. I hope.
Yeah, there is no more questions. Can we ask any further question from the? Sorry. I lost it.
Yeah, I have one question to Captain Rakesh Singh ji. Sir, regarding this your wish list which you showed on the coastal as well as for inland water, to what extent it is progressing with the ministry and how do you look at it? Is there a good possibility that many of these wish lists will get into the real action?
Sir, way forward, as I mentioned, one is a policy intervention and one is infrastructure related things. So I won't go into infrastructure related things because there are multiple agencies involved. And as you rightly said, I mean, we discussed, we have a very, very good understanding that when you go to your own ministry, either you go with the revenue neutral matter. If it is connected with revenue, it's difficult to convince. So if it's the revenue neutral, it passes easily. And if it's multi-ministerial, then of course, and especially when we're talking about big boys, Home Ministry of Home and Foreign Affairs and External, it becomes very difficult to get anything through. So we have been giving this presentations and meetings in person, this secretary, additional secretary, whoever has been in charge from last 8-9 years. And I think there is one consideration now which is coming that we should have Indian underwriters, third party. That is also because the ministry or a finance minister made that statement. But in terms of bringing fuel under GST, no progress. Bringing inland vessel under tonnage tax, no progress. So I really don't have much to report. And just adding on the fuel part, sir, we are supplying IFO with 5% GST with the vessels carrying container on the coast. This order was issued many years back that the vessels which are carrying container on Indian coast, they will get the IFO fuel oil at 5% GST, and they're getting it. The idea behind that, it will make the transportation cheaper for farm agricultural products. So we have been saying that there is a precedence. When there is a precedence, it's easy for government to copy that. So there is a precedence, and those vessels are being supplied. So why not us? And as far as monitoring the consumption is concerned, we said we already have a regime every vessel, MSAC vessel, need to report to the consumption to IRS, to Classification Society, how much fuel you have consumed, how much you bought, is all on record. Don't know, sir, but unfortunately, nothing much.
Okay. And what about the Maritime Development Fund and other things?
Sir, I'll go to viability gap funding first. There was a 1,600 crore viability gap funding. So I attended a number of meetings in Delhi with people from Planning Commission, Niti Aayog were there, Ministry of Finance were also there. And that where the, call it stone, where the impedance was that shipping is not a HML list item, harmonized list item. It is not. And to amend that or include that, well, that is a challenge by itself. So the one idea was floated that we can tell the ports, major ports, to build or buy ships and then go give those ships on lease, bareboat. So the capex would be less. But the idea was a little strange to us because somebody suggested that we should buy 50,000 ton bulk carriers too. I said, look, is there a capacity shortage in that area? We already have enough of our own. So what are we going to achieve by that? So then our suggestion was that why don't you, as I mentioned, Calcutta Max, 3, 4, 500, TEU container vessel, if at all you want to do it, and then live out. And that was a few months back, and that ended there. So nothing, meaningful has come out of it. Silences.
Okay, right.
But GST would make a big dent. GST would be a very good idea. And as I said, 2%, my understanding is only 2% of national consumption of fossil fuel is in marine. Only 2%. So, and in no country, whether it's European Union or anywhere, the domestic shipping has not developed without the state support. Some kind of a support, direct, indirect, was there. There's a study in Europe, they say, Marco Polo policy and all that word. There's a study in Europe that said every €1 of incentive, I don't use the word subsidy because that is not a very popular word these days. So €1 of incentive leads to €6 of direct, indirect benefits to the country, to the nation. This is the study. So without some kind of a support from, we had a KPMG commission report. We ordered a KPMG report and spent a lot of money, and they recommended that 500 rupees per ton per kilometer incentive shall be provided by the government for shippers who are using coastal mode. It found great favor with our ministry. Ministry, including minister, was very happy with that report. They said it could be done. But as I said, then it went on to another ministry, and then after that we have not seen the backup.
Probably the road and rail lobbies are stronger than ours.
So you look at the capex outlay for railways and roadways, 4 to 5 lakh crore. And what are we talking?
Yeah.
I mean, the kind of capex that we have, we can pay the salary is good enough.
Sure.
Is there any more questions or?
I don't see any questions, sir, but I think Mr. Dasgupta had an observation, sir.
Yeah, if I can, I would like to say one thing. Until about 2005, 2007, the safety and other rules were all modeled under the European waters, that is ADR, ADNR rules. It's only after IWAI rules were framed, it got changed to some extent. But now in MSC 108, there is a submission from China as information paper on the domestic rules and regulations in China. It is a very, very exhaustive document. I would urge you to just go through that. It is how the domestic rules and regulations for shipping industry is maintained, has been developed and maintained in China. So it's worth a read. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Great information.
Thank you very much for a wonderful.
One thing I'd like to
thank you
add
very much for an
to-
excellent presentation. Yes,
one
sir.
thing, if I may
Yeah.
add to what you said,
Go ahead.
very, very interesting thing that mentioned reference that you've given. In the new bill, the MS new bill, which again will be withdrawn and probably the new bill will go.
Yes.
This saga is going on of MS bill forever.
Yes.
A number of times you have given input and studied and met parliamentary committees and also all that you have well known view. If you see the Merchant Shipping Act in its existing form, any relaxation which competent authority wants to give against any convention requirement, it has to be through exemption route 40, whatever, that section of MSI. That you can exempt certain thing and you cannot. So that's an exemption route.
Yeah.
Our input was very clear that under all conventions which are incorporated in MS Act, within each chapter, whether it is LSA, FFA, whether it is construction, pollution, please include the provision of granting exemption within that section itself. So there is an authorization under the Act itself value. We don't have to take exemption route all the time. This is our biggest input that we gave. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. That's right. Yes. Thank you.
So you are not audible.
No, sir. The comment that part of the conversation ended. So now it's up to you. So you can just take the discussion forward. Yes.
Thank you, Captain Rakesh. You have given really very beautiful presentations, highlighting all the issues, constraints, and problems of inland waterways and its navigations, as well as the coastal shippings and integrations of coastal and inland shippings. I accept certain challenges. Yes, there are, and it needs to be sorted out as soon as possible by the authorities and the governments, the state governments, the various stakeholders. And in fact, in inland waterways or inland navigations, a lot of stakeholders are there for providing the fairway, the channel markings, navigation aids, whatever you were told about the incidents also. That is very, very unfortunate. And I have, in fact, saw that vessels in Farakka in June 2019. I was there personally. We went for some other things. And then after 3 days, it happened. And anyway, that times, these IWAI people were not very much ready for attending that problems immediately. Anyway, that sort of things is there and will be there. But for that, we have to have this right kind of vessels which can operate during the monsoon period and during the lean season periods. And regarding the navigations and the IBP routes, there's particularly the route number 1 and 2 and route number 3 and 4. That is between Naranganj to Calcutta, Naranganj and Dhubri. The stretch between Sirajganj to Dhubri, in fact, is very, very problematic zones. And this particular zone was not attended by IWAI nor Bangladesh for quite a long time. Only in 2019 and 20, financial assistance has been given by Government of India from 80 to 20%. And whereas the dredging activities remains with Bangladesh. They say that we'll deploy the dredgers, we'll do the supervisions, and we'll do the all sort of contract management. Here, government has no role. I mean, the Government of India. And
80% of funds, only 80% of funds we have given to them.
Yeah. And that, it's the similarly, between A-Sree and Karimganj, similar type of dredging is going on. And I heard that something has been achieved and now it has been achieved to some extent the navigability. And regarding the, then regarding how to have the confidence building measures on IWT and inland navigation systems is very, very important at this stage. Unless until we take up these issues, we cannot have a good inland navigation systems and also then integrating with coastal shipping to at least take away the 50% of the domestic cargo to these sectors. And for this confidence building measures, the few items are very, very necessary. Of course, the fairway is necessary, and it has to be done by taking everybody together, whether it is Coverage Authority or it is Water Resource Department, the Ganga Flood Control Departments, various departments are there, irrigation departments, all together has to come together, and then only some things can be done for controlling the river and river training and river protection works. Then only this can be done. I mean, moreover, I suggest that some minimum amount of water during the lean season should be earmarked, at least 20% of the total discharge, at least for 3 to 4 months, not more than that. Apart from that, infrastructure, mainly the multimodal terminals, MMLP, that's multimodal logistic parks, trade villages, SEZ, industries near waterways, fast and light, last mile connectivity for all other terminals. It is the essential. And unless until these are provided, of course, cannot be done. Otherwise, as suggested by Captain Rakesh, the sector should be privatized. Let them do their own. In channel marking and night navigation facilities, again, it is a very challenge one. And it is now, at this moment, we tried earlier, most of the things washed away during the flood, and thereafter government, and even the today, some of the audit observations are pending, so the government is telling that you first show the cargo, I mean chicken and egg concept, and it is going on like that. Then IWT policy, which was enacted in 2004, need complete revamping. And similarly, effective promotional and incentive policy and schemes are required. Increase modal share with suitable measures for cargo diversions is also essential. Then other important measures would be the increased budget allocations. Of course, recently only it has been increased from 2005 or 10 onwards. And during the Jalmarg Vikas project, which started in 2014, it has increased quite a lot. But IWI only focused only on the Jalmarg Vikas project, and they could not focus much on the other sides. Then cost-effective and sustainable river training and river conservancy works, of course, it is necessary. Policy for maintaining minimum water discharge, which I have already told. Then institutional strengthening and capacity development of IWT and IWI, and also for the state governments. The state governments, if necessary, if I wish to say about the West Bengal, it is really in a very simple, pathetic situations. Their own statutory departments do not have the competent manpower to do the statutory duties. After the 2020 or 22, the marine people who have retired, after that, they have filled up with young chaps with only mechanical engineering and without any marine backgrounds. And although we have been pressurizing them under the World Bank also that you need them, that we are unable to get them with the salary structures. So what to do? So this sort of reply you are getting from them. Then policy and regulatory frameworks for greening of inland vessels. Then introduction of EEDI, that is Efficient Design Index, or EEXY, Energy Effective Energy Vessels. These are need of the day. Then river information system, digitizations of the IWT sectors is also essential. Then revival of the Jangipur lock, that can also increase the cargo viability for NW1 and NW2 if that is revived properly. Then revival of inland vessel subsidy schemes, building schemes, strengthening of inland fleet with economical energy efficient designs. And unless these are taken up, we cannot have a proper inland water transport systems in the country. And regarding the coastal shippings, integration of the coastal shippings, we have to have more and more multimodal transport and terminals. Then Balagad is one of the transshipment terminals which is being developed by Calcutta Port Trust, and to diverting the cargo from directly from Balagod to Calcutta through inland waterways, and also that Balagod transshipments can be a suitable place for the coastal shipping, and even for the RSB 1, 2, 3, 4, all vessels can go up to that. And further rationalizations of the rules and regulations, of course, is necessary for CIS also. Then is IMTC, that is Inshore Maritime Transport Corridor, which is quite famous, particularly in the western sectors. The same should also be developed in the eastern sector. Of course, the weather doesn't permit, but still it can be done. Like the Paradip stretch to Calcutta or to Bangladesh, or even up to Visakhapatnam or Madras can be done within those 4 months. Then enhancement of the awareness on the CIS, etc. is necessary. R&D on the vessels, inland waterways, marketing and promotionals are also necessary for these coastal and inland vessels. Sorry, coastal and inland shipping integrations. With this, I sum up the sessions, and thank you everybody, particularly the Captain Rakesh ji,
Yes, sir.
and Sivaram, Dr. Iyengar, and Mr. Dasgupta. Thank you all.
Thank you very much. On behalf of INA, I thank Mr. Sivaram for coming as a chief guest at a late moment. And thank you also, Mr. Dandapat. And Mr. Singh, thank you very much for an excellent presentation. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you all for joining. It was an excellent presentation, and thanks for all for participation. Thank you, sir. And we can close this. Thank you. Thank you, and we can close the session.
Dr. Iyengar, then I'm leaving.
Yes, sir. We can close the session.
Okay.
I request INA to
Okay,
close.
thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you for the invitations and everything.
Yes, sir.
At the end.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, I request you to arrange another one on the overall aspects of inland water transport also, with at least from authority, Inland Waters Authority. Let us
Sure,
hear
sir.
from their sides why they are unable to do it. Whenever this organization is existing for the last 35 years,
Yes.
why?
Yes.
I mean, unless we listen from them, we must be presenting in a very rosy pictures by giving different people different views and different his experience. So at least let us listen from their sides. And I heard the new chairman has joined, who is very dynamic. At least if he can be roped in.
And,
Thank you, sir. Surely we'll do that.
For me, I think today's presentation was an eye-opener, in the sense, at least, for many of us. Yeah.
No, in fact, we are talking about inland water transport for the last 35 years. Every forum we start the same things and we end with the same things.
Yes.
Issues and challenges, and we end up with the issues and challenges.
Yes.
No, he has. Sorry, Dr. Iyengar, I'm giving you a little.
No problem, sir. No problem, sir. Please.
His comparison with transportation on the road, rail, and vis-a-vis inland waterways in the different segments is something that, for the first time, I have come across.
Yes.
I have not seen that myself. Maybe you have seen, Mr. Dandapat. Thank you so much again. Thank you.
Thank you,
sir.
Thanks.
Thanks all for joining.
For
sir.
attending. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.